Well, hi. We're so happy that you're here with us today. We are so excited. This is our first show of Meet Nannie and Grammy, the joys and blessings of grandparenting series. And I'm so honored to have as my co host Beverly McGahey, better known as Nannie. And hey, Beverly, you want to
Hi.
say anything?
Oh no, good after. Yes, I would. Hi, I am as Suzanne said, Beverly McGahee, and I am happy to be here, to be a part of this experience with everyone, um, to discuss my most favorite topic in the whole wide world to discuss my grandchildren and grandparenting. So thank you so much, Suzanne, for the opportunity to be a part of this great experience.
Absolutely, Nanny. You're probably one of the best grandparents I know. I've learned a lot from you over the years and so grateful for everything that you've shared. I have put it into practice. And so we can all learn a lot from Nanny, better known as Beverly, today. Between us, we have 9 grandchildren. And we're going to share a little picture a little bit later, but you can see who our wonderful grandchildren are since we're so proud of that. But, it's interesting. What is a grandparent? It's a little bit of being a parent, a little bit of being a teacher, and a little bit of being a best friend. And it's really interesting how our grandchildren have a tendency to really confide in us because they trust us. They can tell us stuff they can't tell their parents. Isn't that
Yeah,
cool? We get to know all the secrets, right, Beverly?
right.
And so, us being grandmothers, we love our grandchildren to the moon and back. I'm sure you picked that up by now. And sometimes a little bit even more, we love them a little bit more than our own children. There's nothing that we wouldn't do to see our grandchildren happy. Our love is very strong, it's pure and unconditional. And we could only compare it to a mother's love. It's unconditional. We're really right there with them. So, somebody once said, grandparents are the best kind of grown ups. Would you agree with that, Beverly?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I also, to take a little further, we talk about grandparenting and we talk about our biological grandchildren, but there's so many different categories of grandparents, and there's so many different ways people can grandparent. There are aunts and uncles and relatives and um, uh, clergy and mentors, and just people that are that have an opportunity to be a part of a younger generation's experience. And so you can have the love of a grandparent without actually having the bloodline of a grandparent.
Boy, that is such a good point. And, speaking of being a grandparent, I think it's time to show our pictures. What do you think? I'm going to let you go first to show your beautiful grandchildren.
Certainly, certainly.
And be sure to
Always
introduce them.
okay. I will. I have um, first. I start with the youngest. This is Bryn. She's 4, and then we have Bailey. Oh, wait a minute. Who's 9?
Oh, she's so cute. They're
Thank
all
you.
cute.
And then I have to kind of group them here to group them together. Let's see if you guys can see that. I have Aaron and 7 and Brooke, and um, I'll have an opportunity going forward. 7 is the only boy, but I'll have an opportunity going forward um, to really show you individual pictures and talk about their personalities each. But yeah, so I have they range from age. They have 2 15-year olds. 7 is 15. Brooke is 15. That's interesting. And then we have Aaron, who's 12. Bailey, who's 9. And Bryn, who is older than all of them, who is 4.
She
So
probably rules the roost, doesn't
she
she?
rules the roost. She does.
Well,
So,
it's funny you say that. I've got some too, if I may share.
of
Um,
course.
I'm going to show right here. This is Mary Charlotte, and she's 7. And her brother Miller, he is going to be 3 in May. And he just so happens to have the same birthday as his first cousin, Caitlin. And she's going to be 1. And it just so happens I have this great picture. It is hard to, of both of them. And so Caitlin's going to be a year old in May. And then here I've got my dear Cameron. And so those are my 4. And she is 3.5. So feel so blessed that we've got our fabulous grandchildren with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. So that's 9 altogether.
it is. So Beverly, Nanny, I should say,
And Grammy.
and Grammy, yes. We're going to be we have something in the scrolling right now, which is our aarp.org/family, which covers anything about all relationships, and grandparenting is
Yes.
included in that.
Mhm.
So we encourage folks to look at that. We also have another one I'm going to be putting in the chat, which is about Generations United. And that's about grandparents who are actually raising their grandkids, or
Yeah.
great grandparents, or relatives who are raising their kids. And you have had that experience of raising others as well. So we will be talking about that more in depth at another show, but we
Right.
want to be sure people have that. The other thing is, there is a fabulous magazine. It's called Grand's Magazine. And I sent it over to you today because I thought, oh my gosh, you were just talking about this yesterday. So I sent it
Yeah.
over to you, but I'll put that link in well if people want to get it's free and it just gives great advice. And we're going to be taking some of that good information as well to share. But let me ask you a few questions, Nanny, coming from Grammy here. What categories of grandparents are there?
Well, first of all, I really want to share with everybody that's tuning in that Suzanne and are we're just having a discussion, and we want to bring this group together just to share experiences. Suzanne has given you lots of official resources, um, and places that you can go and find information um, out about grandparenting, or in all areas, in all interest areas. But we're strictly here on this in this forum are just trying to have an experience together, have some fun, share some ideas, some smiles, maybe some cheat sheets of what it's like, so we can keep up with our grandkids and be cool, so they, and surprise them with our coolness. But as I was, so to answer Suzanne's question, I kind of touched on it a little bit ago. There are all types of grandparents, and they don't have to be, blood related grandparents, but there are aunts and uncles that serve as grandparents. There are, um, I mean, all, I'm sorry, all types of relationships that can form grandparents. There are all type of experiences of grandparenting experiences. Grandparenting experiences where you're in the home with your grandkids, where you're far away, miles away, where you have grandparents that have grandchildren that probably may be deployed in other countries because their parents are active military or even veterans. There are all types of categories, and so each of us has a different experience with our grandparenting. And so in this forum, we're just going to kind of share and talk about ways we can navigate those experiences so that we can have and share some inside secrets so that we can have so everybody can um, have a richer experience.
You said something yesterday that just really hit home, and it's that grandkids are really the best medicine for us as grandparents.
Oh yeah.
And, there's different kinds of grandparents. I mean, there's the what, go go. So, how many of y'all are go go grandparents? You're on the go all the time with your grandkids, always doing something. Um, or maybe you're just slowing up a little bit. So, you're kind of going slow. Maybe you're reading a story or something. You're not out there playing on the floor with the grandkids or
Or
something.
like you were yesterday, the no go.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, no
That's
go. Now
another
we've all been there.
one.
Have we been there
Yes,
or what?
yes.
And that's when we're like, oh gosh, we're so tired. But it was all worth it. But you said something really great about how your grandkids energize you.
Oh
You want
yeah.
to talk about that a little
Oh,
bit?
certainly, certainly.
Yeah.
I'm just really blessed to be in close proximity to my grandchildren, and so during the pandemic, all of our lives have changed, and in some ways, I'm more flexible, and so I'm able to help my children out with the kids, and with some of the kids going through transition as far as the type of school, homeschool versus in-person school. But so on days, and we've all changed, and this pandemic has affected all of us, impacted all of us differently emotionally. And sometimes you can just get down, or sometimes you just have aches and pains that you didn't have 25 years ago, and you just don't feel like moving around. And the fact that I have some pretty regular responsibilities with my grandkids make it encourages me to find the energy to meet their energy.
Yeah.
And so I was reflecting that I wonder how I would feel, how much less I would do if I didn't have them in my life. And I mean that in a positive way. Not that I need to do less. It means I feel like they keep me moving. They keep me
Yeah.
on my toes, and they keep me laughing, and they keep me trendy, so I look for some things you can put off and you can reschedule, but it's really hard to tell your grandkids no. And I never have I had to think about that. I never have broken a promise. So if I promise something, I'll keep that promise.
Right.
So yeah. um so that's the positive. My grandkids always tell me thank you, Nanny, thank you for this. And so the other day I told them thank you, because
Good.
had I not needed to be a part of their schedule, and that day I probably would be somewhere rubbing Ben Gay on my knee.
Well, it's so funny that you say that about not saying no. I remember a couple of months ago,
Oh no, I didn't
my
say I don't say no.
oh, okay,
I,
all
I, I
right,
don't I
but
don't break promises.
we
I
don't
tell
break
them no.
promises. Let me be
Yeah.
clear about that. Well, evidently, my granddaughter, my oldest, Mary Charlotte, who's 7, she she said something to her dad, who's my son, and he said, "What's this, Mom? I hear that you're the grandmother doesn't say no." And I said, "You know what? She might think that, but it's how I put it across to her. It's really, I am saying no, but she thinks she's empowered in some way. So it's
Yeah.
how we approach it and how we deliver the message. And I'm so glad she's thinking that, because a lot of times I've told her no.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Well,
just depends.
yeah, well, yeah, but it's not, it's how you say it,
Yeah,
because
it
you have
is.
to say
It is.
no sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
so, but Suzanne, you brought up that leads us to another discussion, and that is really about um we talked about how you can be that um person that your grandkids stand in the gap, so to
Hmm.
speak, as they're
Hmm.
growing,
Yeah.
and balance your relationship with your children,
Yeah.
your children-in-law laws, and your
Yes.
grandchildren. So yeah, you were sharing some interesting information about some interesting experiences about that. Um,
I'm glad you brought that up. There is this book, and I recommend it to everybody. It's all about relationships, and it's walking on eggshells. So before my oldest son got married, someone recommended it to me. So I got it to help me understand what to say, not to say, kind of be real sensitive to certain things and thoughtful, but also talks about grandparenting and those relationships with a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law. There's different things and different parenting skills that we come from different backgrounds, that we've been raised in a certain way, and we just have to be very thoughtful that we work together when we have our grandchildren. So
well,
I
what about? Oh, I'm sorry. I
yeah,
was going
no,
to
go
say.
ahead. No, go ahead.
So what about in long distance relationships? I think you probably can share some information about that. Some of your situations, some of your experiences, because as I said, I have, my grandchildren right here, close to me, but your grandchildren are not as close to you. So what about some long distance relationship
Well, I appreciate
advice?
you bringing that up. I think about my own parents, and they lived, 3,000 miles away, and they used to come out at, 4 to 6 weeks at a time when they came to
Mhm.
visit. And it was maybe 2 to 3 times a year. And how grateful I was. But I always thought I wish they'd been closer. And here I'm in the
Mhm.
same state, two
Mhm.
hours and 4 hours away, and sometimes it's hard. But you know what? I'm so grateful for FaceTime. Oh my Lord, we're always
Yeah,
on that FaceTime about every other day, and so we're always sharing. Or I get texts from my oldest granddaughter all the time. She goes, "Grammy, let's do emoji stuff. Let's tell a story, or let's do that, or we do math problems." I love to do Kahoot. That's on your phone, and
yeah.
so we have fun with that. So being connected, different ways of being connected are so important. And
Mhm.
I even I told you, I think I told you about this, but Kelly, about 3 weeks ago, I even went horseback riding because I'm helping pay for some of her lessons. I used to be a big horse race barrel racing person and rodeos and stuff. And I said, this is important. She needs to learn responsibility, to take care of an animal. And loves her gummy bear horse. And she talks about it. We can talk about gummy bears. She'll have pictures sent, or she'll say, Granny, look at me, this type of thing. So, all that stuff is so important. But, Beverly, I wanted to bring up something else that we had talked about earlier, if it's okay. And that was about grandparent names. And, we were talking yesterday about having some nicknames for our grandkids. Well, what about grandparent names themselves? I mean, we have our name. You are Nannie. I'm Grammy. How did you get your name of Nannie? Was that something that your grandkids picked out? Or is that something you picked out and said, okay, this is what you're calling me? Because that's what my mother did. She said, you call me G. So I'm just asking.
Well, as I said, my oldest is 15, so I really have to kind of think back on this. But
Yeah.
I'm really, and they change it as they go. Nanny is that name that they call me, especially the older ones, when they need a soft place to land, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
But to, and the other thing I wanted to just say before I tell you how it came about was now I wish it wasn't Nanny, because I feel like the nanny most of the
Oh,
time, even though I
you're the
spell it with
hired help,
IE,
right?
yeah,
But you're not hired. You're
they're
just
not
free.
hired, but 24/7. Um, but yeah, so they kind of, my grandkids kind of came up with that. Um, I think when I used to talk to them when they were babies, I would refer to myself in third person as Nana,
Uh-huh.
or Nana, something like that when they're real young. And then so the oldest grandkids, they just added the nanny part to it. No,
Okay.
and so the oldest one started it, and of course the younger ones hear that, and they pick up on that. But I do have to say that my older grandkids now, they're too cool. So in public they call me Nan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, around
Yeah.
their friends they call me Nan, and
Yeah.
as soon as their friends are not around anymore, it's Nanny again.
Oh, there
So
you go. I'm getting Graham from Mary Charlotte. Same thing. If
oh
she's around
yeah,
her friends, or
yeah.
she says, "Hey, Graham."
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have to be cool. They have to be
Yeah.
cool,
It's got to be
you
really
know.
cool.
And then
So,
so my youngest one, she's transformed Nanny into Nana.
okay.
Nana. She's Nana, Nana.
Nana.
But I think that's just when she still wants to talk me into giving her a zippy cup.
Ah, okay. Well, my
What?
little grandson, he calls me Bubble.
Yeah.
And the reason why,
Bubble.
yes, and the
That's
reason
what happened? How did
I
you get
know.
that?
Well, there was almost 2 weeks. I took care of them last year, and
Mhm,
he loves bubbles. So we got some bubbles, and we got a little guy that would go blow bubbles all the time. He loved it.
mhm,
He'd laugh and what have you. We did it every day, probably seemed like for hours.
mhm.
And it just clicked with him. So every time I see him, I say, "Hi, Bubble." Oh,
Oh,
yeah, so cute. It's so sweet. So, people a lot of times go traditional with names, Nana sometimes, because that's what grandmothers are called in the family. Nanny, like you just explained why you got your name. But, what other kinds of names are there that people can look at? You can go back to your roots, and, there might be a name that's continued from generation to generation. My daughter's mother-in-law is Mimi. And I know more Mimis who are grandmothers than I think I know Heinz pickles. Seriously. I mean, that's just like very popular. But her mother was Mimi. So she just took that on, you know? We'd be kind of interested, Beverly and I are talking about names. What is your name? What is your nickname that you have for your grandkids? I know my grandmother, she said, don't call me grandmother. She said, call me Beulah. That was her
Mm,
first name. And then she
mhm.
said, I hate Beulah. I hate that name. Call me Julia. so, so she became Julia. So, who who knows? Mima's another name. Oma,
Yeah, yeah,
German.
Yeah.
Grandmother, of course,
Mama.
mama, that's right. That's right, or grandma,
And
that type of thing.
I know, just Southern, and it might not just be Southern, experiences,
Sure.
but I've heard people call their grandmom, Big Mama, a Big Mom, a Big Ma,
Yeah.
uh, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, so there, and then of course there, like you and I, younger grandmoms that don't really feel comfortable in that, with that
Mhm.
grandma title. So,
Right.
I've heard, grandma
Oh,
and,
yeah. Grandma, that's a good one. Yeah.
yeah, and Nene and Mimi, other things, that kind of
Yeah.
signifies that there's a relationship, but it's not, you know, a grandmother. But,
Sure.
but Suzanne, it really doesn't matter what we're called because it's how we feel, and it's the
That's right.
relationship, and it's the bond that naturally happens when you have grandkids.
You're so right on that. I looked this up, and I think I shared this with you, but I thought, I wonder what the Kardashians call the mothership. What is her nickname for grandma? And it's Lovey. That's what they call her, which I thought
Oh,
was
that's
interesting too.
nice.
Yeah, isn't that nice, Lovey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of English, isn't it? I think it's just very sweet. It's very
It's
kind.
I just like the fact that it has the love connection,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so yeah.
absolutely. So tell me, what about nicknames for our grandchildren? Um, you had mentioned some things that you've come up with, Fluffy, or something. So how did nicknames evolve because of that
um,
endearment that we
I
have for
think
our grandkids?
Oh, I just think, nicknames can evolve from anything. It could be,
Yeah.
one day they're eating a ice cream cone, or, the I share with you my 9-year-old granddaughter. We call her Fluffy, and she loves it. But and it just came from a doctor's visit where, the doctor said, "Oh, she's fine, she's healthy, she's a little fluffy, but she's okay, she'll be
And
okay."
that stuck.
And it's stuck. And we said, "Come here, Fluff." And so she's been Fluffy for a little while, and so the other day, she's 9, so she's going to be double digits next year, or this year. So she told me she's going to change her name from Fluffy with the Y to Fluffy with the I, because
Oh, there you go.
that's
That shows
sassy.
she's maturing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's sassy. That's definitely
yeah.
sassy.
And most of my grandkids, it just comes from me babbling when they're little, and I say, "You're just the tootsie bootsy," and so
Aw.
now my youngest granddaughter's name is Tootie, and everybody calls her Tootie.
Uh-huh.
So, what about your grandchildren?
Well, I have a tendency to call them sweets. How you doing, sweets?
Yeah.
And my oldest is my one and only.
Oh.
Yeah, we have this special bond. I will never forget when she was born, and she was, her mom is like 5'2", and you can relate to this. And she was like 9 pounds 8 ounces or something. She came out like a grown up, and as she came out, our eyes locked, and it was like, oh my gosh, my heart is just
Right.
there. And so she'll come. She goes, "I'm your one and only Grams." And I'm just like, "Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is so
It's
great."
so
Well,
cute.
you know, um, you won't believe this, Beverly, but we've got only about 7 minutes to go,
Oh,
and
okay.
we have talked really well, and we're sharing our own experiences. But we'd also like to hear from the audience.
Of course,
If any of
yes.
you all are grandparents or planning to be grandparents, let us know if we can help you in any way. Write down a question for us, or if you have a name that
Yeah,
you're calling yourself, let us know what it is. We're
I would
open.
be interested to know about some of the names and of the
Yeah.
grandparents, as well as some of the nicknames that they've come up with um, for their grandchildren.
Well, we've kind of been talking about grandmothers. I guess we should kind of bring in grandfathers. What do you think? Grandpas.
Uh, uh,
Or is this just a
basic
girl
was
thing? Okay.
fine.
Okay. But there are some names for grandpas. I mean, my dad was Gramps. And my husband is just grandpa or granddad, depending on who's who. What about Linton? What is his name?
Oh, his name is Pop Pop.
Pop Pop.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's Pop Pop, and our and my their great grandfather is Poppy, and
Oh,
I
okay.
even get him confused. But yeah, so he's Pop Pop.
Oh, that's great.
Hmm.
I love all those names. That's fantastic. Well, again, we really encourage you all to put in the chat what topics or issues you'd be interested to talk about because we're open. We'll be glad to address anything. We have talked about looking at COVID and grandkids. That was one thing we had talked about. We have talked about Grandparents' Day. What does it mean? You know, a lot of
Right.
people don't even know it's there and how it got its inception and how people can get involved with Grandparents' Day. And we've got Mother's Day coming up, Beverly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can folks get their grandkids to start? How can we help them come up with a project or something to honor their mothers
Yeah.
in some way? What do you have any ideas? Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts?
I try to instead of spending money, I
Mhm.
try to
Yeah.
I really try to teach my and we can talk about this too, instilling um I don't know what I don't want to say old fashioned goals. I mean old fashioned characteristics, but you and I talked about this. How can we and how do we um, transfer and um, certain characteristics to our grandchildren?
Yes. Their
Humility,
values,
their
morals.
values
Yes.
and values and morals
Their
and stuff. And so,
character. Their
yes,
character. Yeah.
and in this new age with on technology and balancing not parenting but grandparenting,
Mhm.
not stepping on your children's or your children's toes when it comes to the kids, but still trying to instill some of those qualities that will carry your grandchildren throughout their lives that um, in this new technology world of technology they may not um, pick up on as naturally because of technology and not being, not having a lot of interpersonal interactions.
Right.
So that's something that we talked about that I think will, folks may be interested in, um, as well as, um, oh, we also talked about having some fun and having folks a trendy what's cool segment so you can be cool with your kids and your grandkids and know and find out the lingo and the latest trends and surprise them. But to answer your question quickly, Suzanne, I try to go for arts and crafts. I try to go for
Yeah.
things that the grandkids, depending on the age,
Mhm.
gingerbread houses,
Oh, yeah.
making a bracelet, drawing a picture, doing some stuff off the internet with galaxies, which represents life, loving love forever.
Yeah.
And so I try to do those things because I think when kids when they put their mind and their hearts and their souls into it, it means a lot more than something you can go out to the store and buy. And then the parents know that the kids have taken the time to think
Yes.
about what something to share with them to give to them to show them how much they appreciate them. You know.
That is so important what you said because once they can share of themselves, they'll get the instant gratification that they'll feel good about themselves. They'll build their self-esteem and also that relationship and
Yeah.
with their
Yeah.
mom or their grandmother. I
Right.
we do a lot of baking, so
Yeah.
cookies are our big thing, and how we can decorate, something for mommy or daddy or
Right.
what have you, or bake cake or cupcakes or something like that. And we've even done it by FaceTime, so that's been fun.
Oh
Getting the
yeah.
ingredients
Yeah.
and
That's
doing something
interesting.
like
Yeah.
that. If we're not
Wow.
right physically together. Yeah.
Suzanne, you know how you and I love to talk about our grandkids. I see we're running out of time. I just want to, thank everyone for joining us here. This show is about all of us. Please, type in the chat and give us some of your feedback. Let us know some areas that you'll be willing to that you would want to talk about. And thank you for taking your time with us today and working with us through this new process. So we value the opportunity to be in your lives and for you to check in with us and see what's going on. Suzanne?
Thanks, Beverly. And our next show is going to be on May 13th, same time, same place. So 12 to 12:30. And we really want you all to just take care, enjoy your grandkids, or anticipate joining your grandkids, but also demonstrate gratitude every day. I think that's probably one of the best things you can say. We are both, as you can tell, very grateful that we have beautiful grandchildren. We're very proud of them. And we want to instill that gratitude in their values every day because we are very blessed. So we hope to see you next week. Stay tuned, and we'll be getting the information out for y'all on our Facebook page at facebook.com/AARPNC. And a big shout out to Steve, who is our communications director, who is behind the scenes. Steve, you want to come on for a minute and say hello to the gang before we leave? Steve, you want to say hello? Okay. Well, there you now you need to get a chance to see Steve.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks. Thanks for great information today.
All right.
So I put some good resources in that chat box. So if
Thank
any
you,
of you
Steve.
out there are looking for books to read about grandparenting, or even some tips about those who are responsible for their grandkids' virtual learnings, just click on those links. And we're looking forward to continuing this conversation. So thank you, Beverly and Suzanne, for a great program today.
Well, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Steve.
Beverly, blowing you a kiss.
Thank
You too, Steve.
you.
And we'll see you on May 13th. All righty?
Okay.
All
Goodbye,
right.
everyone.
Bye-bye.